It's that time of the week when we're joined by Stephanie Dobson. Stephanie is a lawyer, mediator, and online educator with Hanka Divorce Law and Mediation, offices in Edmonton and here in Lloydminster. Stephanie, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks as always, Stacey. Nice to see you.
Well, we have a unique topic today that we're talking about we haven't really discussed yet, and that is adoption. And so I'd like to first talk about exactly what types of adoption are available in Saskatchewan and in Alberta.
Yeah, there's four different types of adoption, if you can believe it, here in Alberta and in Saskatchewan, because of course we're doing the cross-border thing as always in Lloydminster. The first one is called public adoption, and that's the type of adoption when kids are in the child welfare system in Alberta or Saskatchewan. And these children are typically in foster care and then are legally available for adoption. The second type is called private adoption, and that's where it occurs directly between the adoptive parents and the biological parents of the children, of the child, I should say. This process usually involves a licensed adoption agency or some kind of a lawyer to deal with the legal aspects. Then there's international adoption, and this allows Alberta or Saskatchewan residents to adopt children from other countries. And then, of course, that requires compliance with both Alberta laws and then the laws of the child's country of origin. And then the fourth one is one that people will be very familiar with is step-parent adoption. So the step-parent can adopt a spouse's child, usually with the consent of the biological parent.
Stephanie, what is the legal framework that governs adoption?
So in Alberta and Saskatchewan, the governing adoption legislation is called the Adoption Act, and that's the same in both provinces. And these acts outline all legal processes, requirements, and the rights of everyone involved in an adoption. So there's really four key components to this legislation. Number one is the eligibility for adoption. So prospective adoptive parents must meet certain criteria. For example, they must be at least 18 years of age. There's certain background checks and then stable financial status. The second part is consent to adoption. So the consent from the biological parents is essential, of course, unless the biological parents' rights have been terminated. The third requirement is the home study assessment. So unless it's a step-parent adoption, the home study assessment is required, and that evaluates the suitability of the adoptive parents. And then the fourth part of the legislation is the adoption orders. So that's the actual piece of the puzzle that completes the adoption, so makes you the child legally the adoptive parents.
Okay, and what's the adoption process in Alberta?
So Alberta and Saskatchewan is very similar. So the first part would be the research and preparation. So first of all, gathering information about different types of adoptions, for example. So here, our viewers have seen some of our information here, and you can, of course, there's lots of online information as well. And so you would want to choose an adoption type. So remember, there's private, there's public, there's step-parent adoption, and there's international adoption. So figure out which one you want to go with. And then there's the licensed adoption agencies will often hold information workshops to help you with the process, to support you, and to go through some of those legal requirements. Completion of a home study. We talked about home study under the legislation requirements, but yes, that is something that you'll want to work with the adoption agency on. Then there's an application process, and let me tell you, there are a ton of forms with respect to applying for adoption, and that needs to be submitted to the required governmental bodies or appropriate agencies. Then there's a matching process. So for public and private adoptions, and of course international adoptions, there's the matching process where the adoptive parents are paired with the child based on compatibility. Then we go to finalization through the court process, and then post-adoption support. So a lot of adoption agencies will actually help you to support you through that transition when you have the child now, the adoptive parents have the child in their home.
All right, lots of information as usual, Stephanie, and thank you so much for joining me. We will be back to chat again next week.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey.